to be truly transformative as we introduce our modern day alchemist of the future. He is not only a visionary leader and pioneering social entrepreneur, but also a dedicated global humanitarian. A man whose extraordinary work transcends industry boundaries, reshaping the way we think about leadership and purpose. His unwavering commitment to uplifting and empowering others truly defines his remarkable journey. This morning, we have the honor to hear from a trailblazer whose vision and dedication are redefining what it means to make a difference. Let's welcome Mr. Dushyant Savadia.
So can I just say, what an introduction. What an absolutely sensational introduction. Can I ask you, for those of us out here, how do you define being a social entrepreneur? What does that mean to you?
Social entrepreneur, what it means to me. See, when the foundation of your business becomes a mission to do good for the society, you become a social entrepreneur. When all that you think of, how can I serve my society? How can I do good into millions of lives that I will be in touch with for the whole of my life? Then you become a social entrepreneur.
Okay, that is lovely to hear. Thank you for that definition. What I do want to ask you is, before we delve deep into your life story and everything that you've been doing, while I've been up here on the stage, the one thing I've noticed about you is there's something truly radiant about your personality and your smile. You've been sitting there the entire time and beaming. It's almost like a very open, calm, and positive energy that you're radiating. Where does that come from?
I think it comes from the spiritual depth of each individual. You know, all of us can be so successful in our lives. We can be successful as teachers, as students, as professionals. But true success to me comes when you are centered, when you are at ease, when you have that spiritual depth inside you from which all your actions take place. Then you will beam automatically.
Okay, so our theme for this year is Resilient Today, Sustainable Tomorrow. And when we speak about resilience, we're talking about mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. And we have students here from the 9th grade to the 12th grade. And spirituality at that age, more often than not, is something you read about in a book. So is there one practice that maybe they can inculcate in their life right now that might help them achieve the same level of contentment as you?
If I were to give you one tip for being a spiritual practitioner, just practice this one thing. That don't let your mind cling on the negative. If you look at our mind, how it operates, if I give you 10 compliments, and if I tell you, my God, you're so pretty, and what a beautiful hair, and lovely skin, and gorgeous clothing, but had your nose been a little straighter, you'd have looked really awesome.
Hey, we didn't even get to the 10. He got to the one before we got to the 10.
Now, think about it. If I give you 10 compliments and one remark at the end, going home, what would you remember? Just that one nose, nothing else.
Oh,
And
not
this
just
is-
me. Now they're all
No,
going to
it's all
remember
of
my
them.
nose, and thank you for that.
So if you look at life, our life is exactly like that. Our mind tends to always cling and grab the negative and make so much of biryani out of it is incredible. So my one advice, one tip, just observe your mind. When it goes and clings to the negative, drop it and you'll be happy.
Well, I like that tip. The example notwithstanding, I like the tip. But I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about your life's journey, because it's been tumultuous and challenging, to say the least. I would love to hear your story, because I'm not sure if all of them are familiar with it.
Sure. I was born in Calcutta and I grew up in Orissa in Bhubaneswar. And by the age of 14, I became an alcoholic. I became a drug addict. I used to drink almost 1 liter of rum every night for almost 6 years. I used to be a chain smoker and smoke 60 to 70 cigarettes a day. And by the time I got to about 20 years old, one night I came home, completely drunk, and I vomited in the living room where my parents were watching TV. And my dad looked at me. He had enough. They had put me into rehab also. That didn't work. And he had enough that night. He said, this is it. He went inside the room, got a hockey stick, came out. And then he realized that's not going to hurt me because I was so drunk. And he went inside the room and packed my bag. 3 jeans, T-shirts, 3,000 rupees. This was back in 1997, 96, I think. And he gave me the bag and he said, get out. And don't show me your face till you become a human. And I'm trying to decide what to do. And my father gave the last word. My mom was trying to stop me. So my dad said, 3 days he won't get food. He will come back running like a dog. And that was it. And I thought, my ego kicked in. I said, no, I'm going to get out of the house and I'm going to do something myself. I arrived at the train station at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the first train was to Delhi. And Rajdhani Express, the tickets were expensive. I think it was 1,600 rupees then. So out of the 3,000, 1,600 gone in the train ticket. And a day and a half later, when I arrived in New Delhi, I was, my alcohol was off the system. I was back in my senses. And I realized this is it. I'm on my own, and I need to build my life from here by myself. Arrived at the train station in Delhi, and came out, and the first thing was to find some food. And I need to find a job. And I saw a lot of restaurants on the other side of the train station, and I went one by one. I could speak good English then. So I got a job. My first career job, I hope it's not yours, so please study hard. My first job was a waiter in a restaurant. So I did that for about 3 months. I cleaned dishes, I picked up dishes, served food. And one day a glass broke. I dropped a few glasses off my hand, it fell on the ground. And the owner of the shop just came and slapped me on my face. And he said, do you know how many generations of hard work has gone in to buy that glass that you just so carelessly dropped?
How many generations of hard work to buy one glass? Okay.
So what he was saying is have value for money. And that's when something hit my head. I said, okay, I understand, I'm sorry. And then after that, I drove trucks for about 3 months between Delhi to Himachal. I used to, those days were amazing. And after that, I joined, my first proper job was a call center job for SR in Delhi.
And can I ask, in this entire time, were you in touch with your family back home?
No.
Were you estranged?
No. Almost 3 years, my parents had no idea where I was. Of course, they tried to put ads in newspapers and TVs and whatnot. India is so big, you can't find if you really want to be found. So no, they had no idea for quite a few years where I was. And eventually, when I worked for the call center, I started actually picking up my career. After that, I worked for Xerox. In 1999, I was head of Xerox for training and development for Southeast Asia. I hit quite a few professional heights quite early in my age. I was only 23, and I was one of the top paid guys in the world.
And why do you think that was? Because not every other 23-year-old was reaching such heights after being familiar with such lows.
I think I was quite determined, first of all. Very, very determined, because I had to prove myself and prove my... See, one thing that I remember very distinctly was that I had this sense that I failed my parents. I had this sense that I failed my country. And I knew I had talents. I knew I had some exceptional skills. And I just let everybody down. So I worked very, very hard to climb where I could. Not that I gave up drinking and smoking. I was still drinking and smoking, except that my choice of liquor and the brand became less expensive.
So you're a bit more functional, and that's all we'll stay on that. But what I want to bring you back to is, I think something that we've all understood is, I think we're familiar with, at least in some juncture in our life, wherein we've disappointed our parents or we've failed at something. But it's not very often that any of us think we've failed our country. So I want to get you back to that. Why did you think that?
You know what? I have no idea. All I knew was, from childhood, I had this nature of doing good, nature of helping. I still remember when I was 14 or 15 and I was still studying in the college, and my friends sister was getting married and he didn't have enough money, I actually sold my bike to give him money so he could get his sister married. I was always like this, wanting to help people. And I knew when I went the absolute wrong side of the life that I've let a lot of people down, and more importantly, India down, because I think I could have done a lot more. And I had that sense of failure for some time at least. So.
Well, I don't know if people are going to manage to do everything you've done in one lifetime. So you've done enough and more, and you have plenty of time to do so much more. But I want to ask you is, from a challenging early life like this to a career wherein you've now in 30 countries, 11
100.
businesses, 100, my, 100 countries, and all this in 9 years, right, from 2015. And so where did that switch flip?
Let's just go back a little more.
Okay.
Because I want to skip the part that got me here. So since college, I finished doing the call center job. I started working for Xerox. But when I was working for Xerox, Xerox made it mandatory for all our staff across the world to take the Art of Living course. You might have heard of Sri Ravi Shankar, the Art of Living Foundation. So I took the Art of Living course when I was 22 years old. Working for Xerox, I was forced into it. And like you said earlier, that youngsters these days don't want to sit and meditate and breathing. And I also had the same idea, that maybe I'll do this once I'm 50, 60 years old and maybe retired. That's when you do these kind of things. But that course had a profound impact on me. And about a few months later, after I took the course, a few months later, I met Sri for the first time. We call him Gurudev. I met him for the first time in '99. And when I met him, one of the things he said on the stage, I was forced to go to one of his satsangs, one of his events in the evening. And my boss at that time said, Dushyant, you know that guru you took the course 9 months ago? He's here, let's go meet him. I said, look, I'm not interested in all of these things. It's time for, it was 7 p.m. It is the peak time for your usual daily entertainment at night. But it was time to booze. So I said, I'm going to go to the bar. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in these kind of things. But he forced me to go with him. And I saw him for the first time on stage. And the first thing he said just glued into my head. He said, no comfort is given to you in your life. All the comfort given to you in your life is to make others comfortable. If your comfort do not bring comfort to others, then your comfort will not last long for you also. And that one thing that he said just glued into my head, and I said, this so resonates to what my personal belief system was. And that's when I decided, this is worth following, this is worth pursuing. And I went for some advanced courses, and eventually I became an Art of Living teacher late in 1999. And a few months later, one day, Gurudev called and said, come become full-time Art of Living teacher. So I gave up one of the most lucrative jobs in the world to become a full-time Art of Living teacher in 1999. I traveled nearly 60, 70 countries around the world teaching Art of Living courses until 2015.
But can I get you to just jump back a step? How do you make a choice like that, wherein you end up in Delhi with 1,400 after that ticket left in your pocket to suddenly one of the highest paying jobs, a career that's skyrocketing, so you're making up for lost time as well. So in some ways, it's a beautiful redemption story. And I'm sure every Indian parent would have been happy with like the pay packages you were receiving, the accolades. And then to leave all of that, was there not the fear of like maybe making a choice they might not approve, of disappointing them one more time? Because for many of us, sometimes the thing that holds us back, especially when we make offbeat choices, is the fear of disappointing the people that matter to us. So how did you make that choice?
We are all born with some calling, all of us. And we know deep inside, what we want to do. And even today, running 13 businesses in 100 countries, I don't use my analytical skills to make decisions. I listen to my gut. I listen to my intuition. That is what has given me the edge in the business globally. So it was that intuition, it was that gut that said, this is it, this is my path, this is what I want to do. And it was an easy choice. Leaving alcohol, leaving smoking, leaving drugs was an easy choice to choose over a life which is so blessed. And of course, to be associated with Sri Sri was a big change for me. And I still remember, I'll tell you a joke. About a couple of years after I became an Art of Living teacher, I became full-time. So I used to be in dhoti, kurta, angavastram, tika. And I became like a proper saint with very long hair. I still have tried to retain as long as I could still.
I was just about to say, the hairstyle still reflects some of those days.
But those days I had a lot longer hair and I used to walk in white robes everywhere. In fact, I came to Coimbatore in 2000 for the first time to teach courses of Art of Living, fully in white robes. And that's when I went home back for the first time. One day, Gurudev asked me, you've not spoken to your parents for years, right? I said, no, Gurudev. Do they know where you are? I said, no, Gurudev. Call them and go meet them. So I went back to Bhubaneswar. I checked myself. I had not left Xerox at that time. I was still working, but I had resigned. But I had already started growing my hair and already halfway into half of white robes. And I checked myself into a 5-star hotel. Of course, now I can afford it. I got a lot of bank balance. And I asked my parents to come to the hotel. And my dad and mom walked, I was maybe about 5 meters from there in front of them, and they couldn't find me. Because they were expecting this guy in jeans and t-shirt and whatnot, and I was in fully white robes. And the first thing mom looked at me and said, what happened to you? I had to tell her the whole story about Gurudev and Art of Living and everything else. So yeah, it was quite a journey, but yes, it was an easy decision because I knew it was my calling.